nostalgic one because I'm going to be talking about one of the earliest Hornby locomotives that I got. It was a present from my grandfather. I believe he gave it to me around the late 1990s, and it's this. It is a Hornby 040 in Colmans mustard yellow livery. Now, let's have a bit of history about this because there's not a lot known about it online, but what I did manage to dig up is Hornby Colmans 040 was released in 1984 and 1985, and it wasn't sold separately. It was part of a set that was called the Pickup Goods set. So this is a fairly rare loco in that instance, I would think, given that it was only released for 2 years and as a set loco. So I'm pretty happy to have it in my collection. But of course, it doesn't work. Let me show you. Put it on the track. Send power to it. Not a flicker. See? Not even moving. The reason for that is mainly because it's got a short motor. So that's one of the things I'm going to be fixing in this video. This is the kind of motor that it has, known as the can motor. And what I do have here in my collection of spare parts is a new, well, refurbished can motor. So one of the main tasks for this engine is going to be refurbishing it by putting it the refurbished motor, so to speak. It's not a brand new motor, I shouldn't refer to it as such, but it's a working motor. And if we dig a little deeper into the problem, the reason this motor doesn't work is because one of its brushes is missing, simply because the brush retaining spring is also missing. So at some point when playing with this thing as a kid, I've probably broken it and tried to do some hasty repairs, and it has run after that. I have seen this loco running. I have memories of it running. In fact, about 2 years ago, I actually did manage to temporarily wedge a carbon brush in there and keep it going and see the loco running around this layout that you see here. But that's not really a long-term solution, is it? So what I'm going to do is the old motor, I'm not going to throw it out. I'm going to keep it and see in case I manage to get the missing parts at some point down the line. But for now, I think it's easy to just put a new refurbished motor in. But that's not all the problems. Another problem I've noticed is that the wheels are a bit stiff to turn. Basically, they turn and then they bind a bit and they turn again. If I keep it on a piece of track there and try to move it with my hand, it's not smooth. What that tells me is that something's off with the quartering. Quartering is something related to steam locomotives with connecting rods, and I'm not going to go into technical detail. You can Google what quartering is. But suffice to say, if your quartering is off, the wheels cannot turn, or they will turn quite jerkily. Now, I cannot figure out for the life of me why the quartering would have gone off. I don't recall removing the wheels and doing anything to that level, but maybe I did. I mean, I did a lot of things when I was a kid, experimenting, taking all my model trains and electronic stuff apart. So maybe I took this thing fully apart and didn't put it back together properly. Either way, that's one of the things I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be removing the wheels, checking the quartering, removing the connecting rods, checking the gear, checking the contacts and the pickups, giving everything a good clean. And even the body needs a few, things to be done to it. You'll see that the buffers are missing at the front and one of the buffers at the rear is also missing. Now those are things I can pretty easily get online, so that's probably for a later stage of this video. But the focus of this video as far as the body goes is going to be just cleaning it up as much as I can. And I guess I can put a fake coal load in the coal bunker at the back there. And if I do have a scale driver remaining, well, I'll pop him in there as well for some added realism. I'm not going to be trying painting or anything simply because I'm no good at it. I need to practice on, trying to draw a straight line with a paintbrush on a paper first of all before I paint my locomotives. So you're not going to see that level of cosmetic restoration on this locomotive. But let's hope we can see it running on my tracks. So let's get started. So first things first, let's take the locomotive apart. Now, I think it's a really good idea to have a big box of sorts to keep all your components inside when you're doing something like this, so you don't lose anything. So firstly, to remove the locomotive is fairly easy. You just gotta grab it from there. I've done this so many times that it's like muscle memory now. First things first, I'm going to be addressing the body later. So for now, I'm just going to keep it in the box like that there. Next thing we have to do is there's a little clip here which keeps the motor in place. Gently prise that off into the box, and the old motor just easily comes off to the hand there into the box as well. And the reason I'm keeping it in the box for now is because I don't want to put the new motor in until I'm really sure that everything else that is wrong with this locomotive has been sorted out. Because like I told you, there is some resistance going on there which I really need to address. Now firstly, I'm going to check what's going on by removing this motor mounting plate which is released by that screw over there. So I've just got my set of handy screwdrivers off camera here because I don't want to clutter up the workspace too much. Let me just find the best bit for it. Here we are. Let's remove that. Once again, this is something I have done before, so it's all coming back to me now. Keep the screw there. Let's remove the plate, and you can see there's some tape wrapped around there. That has to be there because the pickups are directly beneath, which we are also going to remove. So since the pickups are metal and the motor mounting bracket is also metal, you don't want metal to metal contact of that kind. So now we've got just the chassis. I hope you can see that. Seems fairly reasonably in okay shape. I'm not seeing any issues just yet. Maybe the wheels have slightly too much sideways movement, but I'm still seeing that binding. In fact, it's quite apparent, the binding. So what I'm going to do is get myself a plier and remove the connecting rods gently and see what's going on. I'll also need to check the back-to-backs. In fact, let me do that right now with my trusty caliper, if it decides to work, that is. I think you'll recall when I had a few issues with it. Okay. Okay, it's plain ball. Thank you very much. Let's check the back-to-backs without further ado. Worth 6.2. Okay, now this thing's having quite a problem, I think. So I'm just gonna switch it off and switch it on again. And well, why is it not zeroing? Oh, come on. Yep, it's got stuck. Ah, there we go. I guess I should have spent a little more money and bought something a bit better rather than just buying it off Daraz. Example why Daraz isn't always the best place to buy things, especially electronics. Let's see the back-to-back. 14.7, that's a bit too much. Let's check this axle. 14.4, bang on standard. So this one is okay. This one is a bit too wide. Doesn't matter because I'm anyway going to be removing the wheels, but let's see if I can just squeeze it back and see if that sorts the problem out. Hey, what do you know? I might have actually solved the problem. Let's take another back-to-back reading. What do you say? Of the problem wheel. 14.4, bang on. 14.3. 14.6 now. Well, let's squeeze it a little more. And let's see how smoothly it rolls. Nope, there's still a bit of resistance. I think the connecting rods have to come off for this repair. I'm going to take the back-to-back once more. 14.6, and this one is bang on at 14.3. Nope, connecting rods have to come off. So here is the chassis minus connecting rods. The connecting rods are in my trusty box. You can just about see them there together with their pins. 2 connecting rods, 4 pins. Now this allows us to check the axles, and I can see that, well, they seem alright. Not seeing any untoward resistance there. You can see the chassis nicely rolls. Can you just about see the top of the camera there? Well, it seems to be rolling pretty nicely. So at this point I could probably just reassemble everything back with the new motor and have a running locomotive, but it wouldn't. It would be then what's known as a single, where only one axle is driven, so that's not ideal. Plus it'll look rather silly without connecting rods, so I need to find out why, or rather what the issue is. So to do that, what I'm going to do is, now that I know that everything's rolling fine, first I'm just going to take a gauging check once again, and oh, it changed the unit. Okay, 14.4, bang on. 14.6, let's just squeeze that. It's a lot easier to squeeze the axle slightly when you don't have any connecting rods on it. And then let's see what we've got here. 14.5. Okay, but it's, I think I have squeezed it just a smidge too much. So off camera, or rather on camera I can do that. I'm just going to tease out the wheel very slightly. It's back to rolling freely again. 14.7. Okay, so that's an interesting one. Has the chassis swelled up in some way? I hope not. If that's the case, this locomotive is not going to be very easily restored. Well, I'm proud to report success on getting rid of that annoying binding after a lot of removing and re-quartering of wheels and adjusting and pulling and pushing and doing various kinds of things. You can see how it beautifully spins freely. So now if you've got that matter sorted out, the next thing to do is to attach the pickups. But before I do that, I think it's a really good time for me to use my trusty Pico track rubber and clean the wheels, because with a locomotive like this that's driven with a worm gear drive, it's a lot easier to clean the wheels when the motor's out, because you can rotate the wheels by hand. Once the motor's back in, because of the worm drive, you can't rotate these wheels by hand. So I'm going to do the wheel cleaning now. It's pretty simple. I'm not going to do the entire wheel cleaning process, but basically what you do is you hold the rubber back and forth on the tread of the wheel, as with your left thumb you gently rotate the wheel. I'm sure you can already see the color of the wheel has become cleaner. I'm just going to do that spot and show you. Clean it up, and there you are, it's shiny. So I'll do all 4 wheels, be right back. So here we are, 4 lovely clean wheels. I didn't push too hard on the cleaning simply because of how fiddly it was to get the quartering and everything right. I didn't want to mess anything up. Next step is to get these equally fiddly little pickups in place, and I don't know if you can see on camera, there are places to hold the pickups in within the chassis, but it's quite hit and miss. Well, not really hit and miss, it's just that you gotta get it in exactly the right spot, and sometimes finding that spot is not as straightforward as one would expect. So once that's done, I'm gonna quickly pop in this motor mount with its, and then that happens, you're bound to drop a screw. Thankfully I dropped it on my table where it landed on the brown beige surface rather than landing on my grey carpet, because a grey screw on a grey carpet is quite the recipe for disaster. Actually, I'm just going to shut off the camera and do this because it's way too fiddly. And we're back. Let's check once again and make sure that everything rolls properly. Yes, it does. Slightly stiffer rolling, and that tells me that I need to slightly back off the motor mount screw because it's fouling one of the axles. So let's just give it a quarter turn there, and there we are, much nicer. Now let's finally go for the moment that I've been waiting for, which is the new motor, refurbished motor. Can't call this new, I shouldn't misrepresent facts. Here we go, let's get it out of its bag. There we are. So let's give it a quick look around. It comes with the suppression capacitor, and I'm going to remove this sticker because, well, it has no purpose, and it's also going partially over the exposed area of the commutator there, so we don't want anything going into the motor and fouling it. This motor was, I believe it cost me definitely over £10, so yeah, I don't want to bust it in any way. Also, the capacitor is a little too close to the worm. I'm just going to push it back there, and I reckon if I put it this way, it should be okay. Let's install it within the locomotive. It's a perfect fit because it's of course the part that's required to be there. Let's put the motor clip back, making sure that the pesky capacitor is in the way on that side. Right, no option but to put the motor the other way. Worst comes to worst, I'll just pop out the capacitor simply because bit of dust there, simply because I have no need for the capacitor. I don't have any TV or radio equipment. Oh, that's interesting. A little bit of hair around the motor, or rather carpet fluff actually. I'm happy it's not hair, to be honest. So yeah, carpet fluff from whoever used this motor in their locomotive before. But I'm assured that this motor works. I got it from the UK, from Peter's Spares. So here we go. Peter's Spares are generally known to be very reliable with spare parts sourcing, so I have no issues in expecting this motor to work. Let's put the chassis on the tracks. Just gonna tip the camera up a bit for the first moment when we give it some juice. Something moved, and there she blows, or there she goes rather. Wow, I must say it's one of those rather heartfelt moments when you see something from your childhood working like that. Although there's a rather interesting thing happening here, and that is, well, that the train is going in the opposite direction. That's rather interesting. This shouldn't be happening. Now, what you will note there is that it cut over points. So I'm just going to let this thing run in a bit, simply because let the new motor and the wheels and everything bed in. It's going to catch it on the other side. There it comes. Isn't that a lovely sight? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that chassis and smell it. Nope, no untoward smells. Now it's really important to do a smell check of sorts to make sure that nothing's burning, you know. You never know, things could be burning and you wouldn't know it. So it's always good to do a smell check when you install a refurbished component, major electrical component like a motor. So everything has gone well. The chassis moves beautifully. Although that little cutting over points behavior is one of those things that I must tell you about 040 locomotives. And that happens because of their short wheelbase, you see. They have a very short wheelbase, only 2 pickups per side. So it's perfectly reasonable for them to sometimes cut over points simply because they go over the dead spot in the points. You see, if you look at a point very closely, you can see that there is just a bit of plastic there because, well, that's the way points are made. Some points have a longer bit of plastic, some have a shorter bit. These Hornby points have a fairly sizable bit of plastic there, which is why smaller, or rather small wheelbase locomotives with fewer pickups like these 040s tend to cut out on the points. Some say you can get rid of that problem to a large degree by using pico points, and it's something I may consider for my layout later, but right now I only have 2 040 locomotives. My good old Colmans, which will see service very soon, and this 040 in Rotary Industries livery, once again a Hornby locomotive as well. Interestingly, this locomotive's motor is not of the same type as what we have just seen in the Colmans. I'm just digressing a little bit here from the topic, but let me show you the motor in this locomotive. There we are. You can see it's a more traditional type of motor, and also this one, the external connecting rods pop out each time you open the locomotive up. Now the Hornby one does not have external connecting rods because, according to the history behind the Colmans locomotive, is that it has internal, whatever those rods are called, and it was an experimental oil burning locomotive. Only one of its type were made in real life. So there's another little neat bit of history for you. I'm just going to pop the body back on and just, see this thing running as a locomotive. Of course, as I told you, I need to clean the body up. I want to maybe put some figures and some coal in it, but for a shot of childhood nostalgia, here we go. Now, isn't that a nice sight? Wait for it to come round. Yep, my grandfather would be proud. So next up is a bit of cosmetic enhancement for this locomotive. Right, so here we are. I have washed the body by hand using some hand washing soap and water. Didn't use anything abrasive or rough because I want to retain a bit of the locomotive's, patina, so to speak. I have cleaned everything, including the buffer beams. You will notice that there was some black glue earlier there, which I have cleaned off now. However, I have broken off a small detail piece there while cleaning it, which I shall have to very gently reattach with super glue and paint it in with black. So it looks like I'm going to have to do a little bit of painting, even though I didn't want to venture into that department. Now, for buffers, I'm going to have to get them down and do that. What I'm going to do next is two things. One is, well, I'm going to look through my selection of little scale people and find a driver for this locomotive. And I'm also going to use this bit of rigifoam cut into shape to fit inside the coal bunker as far as possible, because I don't want to fill the entire coal bunker with coal, as it might create some weight there, and well, I don't want to ruin the weight distribution of the locomotive. It seems to be pretty good the way it is. So what am I using for coal? Well, ballast. Because this particular ballast, even though it looks grey here, it turns into a nice deep shade of black if you saturate it with water that's mixed with some glue, much like what you do for ballasting. So I discovered that when I was ballasting my tracks with this ballast, that it turns deep black, which is okay. I mean, not too bad, and for this purpose it's pretty good. So that's what's coming right up. Right, so I have filled the coal bunker with rigifoam, and I have also glued the rigifoam in place. Now the glue I'm using is multi-bond right fix. It's kind of like Chemifix. It's basically a white multi-purpose glue for woodwork, handicraft, all those things. Works really well when you dilute it with water too. It's what I've used to fix my ballast, and most importantly, it's what I've also used to fix people in some of my locomotives, like this one for example. Let me just take it and show you. Yeah, there, see the little man there? Well, he's held up pretty well inside this locomotive, standing on the footplate, held by nothing more than a dab of glue on each of his feet. And well, he's rattled and rolled over the rails for a long time and nothing has happened to him. But if I want, I can just remove him easily too, because this glue is not like super glue. So the next step is now to make a mixture of glue and water and start inserting ballast into the coal bunker. So now you can see my ballast inserted into the coal bunker. I've got my mixture of glue and water here, with a bit of dish soap added to just break up the surface tension is always recommended. And I've got my trusty eyedropper here. Let's start. Let's take some glue into the eyedropper and just tease it along. There we go. So basically I'm ballasting a coal bunker. I guess you could think of it that way. There we are. Saturated it a little bit simply because I want there to be plenty of glue to give that nice black color that I seek. But I can use my eyedropper to suck up a tiny bit of glue too. Very delicate operation that is, because I don't want to suck up any of the ballast. So there we are. That has been taken care of rather nicely. I'm rather pleased with how that has turned out. Finally, let's look for a little man to put in there to drive the locomotive. Well, I hunted long and hard and I found this chap here. Let's see if my camera can focus on him. Well, he's wearing a coat, but I guess it's cold, so he could be standing in the locomotive like that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some glue on the fellow's legs like that, just like how I've done for all my other models or models of people. and then grab him with a tweezer like that, keep the body straight like that, and just place him inside like so. I think when, oh no, he's fallen over, damn it. Oh, now his legs are sticking out the side and there's glue on the locomotive. Well, okay, let's clean that up a bit. Just gonna take the locomotive off camera for a bit because I'm wiping it with my handkerchief right now. Always good to carry a handkerchief around with you. There we are. Let's do this whole rigmarole again. What do you think? Glue the legs. This time I know that the issue was that I didn't hold him high enough with the tweezers, so this time clean the tweezers up too. Yeah, I'm really not cut out for this fine kind of handicraft stuff. Get him in there. Come on, man. Stay inside, and yes, he's in. He's in. And I'm not going to disturb him one bit. You can just about see him there. That's it. I'm now gonna put him aside in a place where I will not bump him. So there we are. Once everything's dry, about 24 hours time, let's come back and see how the loco looks on the rails. You can already see the chassis here. Not gonna do anything more to that because that part of the operation is finished. Yes, it does run back to front, but the thing is, because this is a motor that's directly connected to the pickups, it only leads me to believe that there's something in the motor itself that is not wired up the way it should be. So there isn't much I can do about that. So in about 24 hours time, we can see how this locomotive is going to run in finished form. So here is the locomotive. You can see the ballast which has now become coal, and we've got a little driver in there. I'm just going to tilt it slightly so you can see him there. That's the main things of what I want to do cosmetically for this locomotive. Now you might be asking, didn't you say this was an oil burning locomotive? Well, yes, it was designed as an oil burning locomotive. It's called the, I believe, class 101 Holden locomotive, but the oil burning part was supposedly unsuccessful, so these locomotives were reverted back to traditional coal burning locomotives, which is why this locomotive came with a coal bunker, and I'm sure that had a coal load when I got it. Things that need to be done still to this locomotive include finding a copper or brass ring for the top of the funnel and some buffers. But for now, I think this is a pretty good restoration, especially by an amateur like me. And I also sorted out the motor issue where it was going backwards when I selected forwards and vice versa. It was simple matter of just flipping the motor over and installing it, because apparently the motor contacts are designed in a certain way where you can just change the direction by flipping the motor over. Not all motors are like that to my knowledge, but this one was. So let's see how it pulls out with an LNER varnished teak coach and a brake van. Let's give it some power, and here we go. It has stopped because there we are. Let me just get my phone out of the holder and show you the little train going along on the tracks. See it come out of the tunnel like that. Isn't that a beautiful sight? I'm definitely sure that my grandfather would be enjoying this very much, knowing that what he bought me is still working. Well, how many years has it been since he bought it for me? Well, at least 24 years, given that he bought it before 2000, so 24 years at least later, still running on my layout, holding a very special place on my layout and in my heart. So I hope you've really enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a noisy runner. Let's bring it to a stop there. Let's back it up a little bit, and well, there we are, the Hornby Colmans locomotive, restored by yours truly, given a new motor, cleaned up, and some cosmetic enhancements. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel too. Have a great day and thanks for watching.